Once upon a time, two friends joined forces to bring you the best in horror entertainment. Brian from the north, Tim from the south, each bringing their own unique perspective to the horror community. Movie reviews, Blu-ray releases, beer pairings, games, and more. Welcome to your new home for horror. This is Civil Gore.
All right, everyone. So Brian and I are huge fans of werewolf movies, so we were thrilled to check out Blackout. And with us to discuss it is somebody who probably needs no introduction if you've been around indie horror for the last few decades. It is writer-director Larry Fessenden, and he is here to discuss this new film that I watched this morning and absolutely loved. Welcome to the show, Larry.
Hey, guys. Thank you so much. This is fun.
Yeah, so in case anybody out there is not familiar with your vast body of work, you can go to IMDb and see his vast body of work if you need to. But can you tell them a little bit about yourself and kind of an overview of your career?
Yeah, so I've been making movies since, I guess, the 90s. I made a movie called No Telling, which was roundly rejected by critics and fans. And then I made a movie called Habit, which did better. That's a vampire picture. And I continue to, look for ways to make my own films as a writer-director. Somewhere along the way, I got an intern in Ty West, and I sort of encouraged him to make movies. I had another comrade named James Felix McKinney. He worked for me, and I encouraged him to make movies, and we conceived of this idea of something called scare flicks, which were really low-budget movies. And in those days, you could sell like the rights and make some money back. So we just kept going, and that's the way I became known as a producer and a mentor to a lot of people. Jim Mickle, Kelly Reichert, Ty West, Mickey Keating later on, and Jen Wexler finally. So all the while producing these movies, I was acting in some things and continued my mission to make these sort of psychological horror movies, which continue with Wendigo, Depraved, which is a Frankenstein story. I made a big movie called The Last Winter. That's the biggest I got. I had Ron Perlman, Connie Britton, James LeGros, and that's sort of a climate change horror movie, rather like The Thing in terms of its setting. And then just recently wrapped up this. I was in the Killers of the Flower Moon, a small part. So I dabble in the big pictures, which is really fun because, you get to be on a lot of sets. And I still do a lot of indie work. I was in Brooklyn 45 by Ted Kagan. So, whatever, I just like making movies and being involved in some way, however big the stick is that I'm carrying. I will say, carry the spear, and sometimes you have the monologue.
Yeah, no, you've literally worn, like, I'm doing our research. I mean, you've worn every hat, like, possible in the industry. I mean, like you said, you acted, you wrote, direct. I saw you were a cinematographer, editor, producer. Do you have is there a particular like favorite out of all those hats that well, it's kind of a two-part question. So do you have a particular favorite out of those? And do you find any of them helps the other hat, so to speak, when you wear that one?
Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose the place I'm most happy is in the editing room. Because on my own films, that's where it all comes together. So in terms of wearing hats and all of that, I'm the type of filmmaker. There are many great filmmakers of many types, but my angle is to write the piece, and that feels like I'm creating a blueprint. I'm still thinking in terms of images. I write my script so you could almost at least film the way I imagine. And then I like to film. That's where you have your camaraderie with the actors, with the other artisans who are, bringing their own ideas to the piece. And then you go to the edit and you kind of make the movie what it needs to be. So it is a whole process. I like acting in other people's movies because then I just want to serve their needs. I've DP'd for a couple of things. I'm really not technically minded, but I DP'd for my son. Very proud of that. And then, so to me, it's all connected, filmmaking. And as I say, it doesn't speak to a great filmmaker. I mean, Spielberg uses an editor, but do you really think in terms of, well, Vera Miles on Jaws, she did say to me, that's known, she was an old and she gave him advice. So, all these collaborations are wonderful. I mean, in a way, what I really value is collaboration, and I like to serve other people's visions. Although when you work with Ty West, you just do what he wants. So that also speaks to, it's always about the personality of the other artist, and you want them to get the most out of their project. That's the mission in my mind.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, because I was actually when I was I actually had dreams of being an editor at one point back in when I was in going to college. I did I did a bunch of fun projects, and I always did like that because it was kind of fun piecing together stuff. Like you do all you get all this great work, and it's like then it's up to the editor to make sure it still looks the way it should be. So it's kind of cool that it's fun. I'm glad that you said that you love editing so much.
Yeah, I really do. And, especially not that you look forward to this, but if something's in trouble, it's fun to solve the problems with the edit. And the edit is actually the language of film. Fast cuts are one thing, long takes. I mean, obviously, it's how it's been shot, but you can do a lot in the edit. You can reorder things. I've had a couple of movies where I took the director aside after the actual premiere, and I said, "Dude, I'm sorry. I've gone into the edit bay, and I've reordered the movie. Just watch it. If you don't like it, I don't want to be rude or bossy, but it almost seemed like it was out of order, and he liked the change. So we've done that. Graham Resnick had a movie. I asked him to cut the end off. This isn't power plays. This is like you have revelations, and I always respect the director, whatever they actually want to do. But it's fun to engage. Your storytelling. You're trying to seduce an audience into understanding that deeply what the hell you're trying to say.
Well, yeah, because we've noticed sometimes we'll watch it. We've seen tons of films, and sometimes you get that one where you're like, oh, if only they cut just a little bit shorter, and it's like you don't realize how hard that sometimes cut is to make. So it's like it's a real craft to edit.
Absolutely, and I find, I mean, you've seen my film now. It seems I have feet in many doors. I grew up on indie cinema. I grew up on the art films. So the idea of a long take, the idea of slow paces, all of that is interesting. But of course, nowadays people are impatient, want to get on with it. But so then you're in the struggle of like, well, I know that you could cut here, but to make the audience linger a little longer is going to create just the right kind of discomfort to get another point across, and so on. These are all, in other words, it's not so obvious that just make something shorter. There's several movies, I can't think of a single one of them, but that are famous. They ended up being better when The Godfather's the classic example. The studio insisted on a shorter than 2-hour movie, and the truth was that took the wind out of the sails of the picture. So it's fun to think that actually the longer version is the one we know and the one that is beloved, and it needed those extra scenes inside. So it's great. There's no right answer. This is
Well, I want to get into Blackout, and I know, Larry, I've read that you're a huge Universal Monsters fan, as am I, and Brian.
Yeah.
Brian and I are both just huge Universal Monster fans. So, where did you kind of get the idea for this film? And I think I know some of the inspiration, but I'll let you talk about it.
Well, I was probably 9 years old. I just always loved the Universal movies. I mean, it's not like I suddenly decided that it was what I loved. That's the thing I had access to. And the monster stories that those movies told, they were on TV. I wasn't going to some art cinema in New York, though I did grow up in a city that had retro theaters. But it was what you could watch on TV, and I just was always drawn to horror. I had two older brothers who ran the TV, and they would watch the top shows, and I Love Lucy and all that. I enjoyed it because I had to. But when they all left the room, it was over to the horror channel. Wolfman to Godzilla, and each channel had its own personality, all that good stuff. I just always liked the dark arts. And then, we had comic books in those days. You could make monster models. You could buy. There weren't as much stuff as we have now. And certainly couldn't go on the internet and look up every picture that David Gogos had made of all the great monsters. You had to wait for a magazine to come out with his art. So the scarcity was also part of it. And you had your imagination, and you could read some scary books. You remember told me a movie of that little kids book called Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. So all of this, it's a generational thing, a lot of it. And in a way, it's more charming to know about younger people like yourselves and younger still who respond to the old movies, because it's easy to be dismissive. But I think they have a magic to them, a kind of surrealism because of their age and certain naivete in the filming. So it's something charming about it. But most importantly, they created these monsters, which were then riffed on forevermore. John Landis, had that in mind when he made American Werewolf in London, and technology changed. People had different makeup approaches, but most of these movies, the Frankenstein monster is the greatest piece of pop art ever created, I think.
Yeah, I wanted
no,
to ask you about sorry, Brian, but I want to ask
no,
you about
I was agreeing. That's all.
yeah, no, I was going to ask you about the and I hope this isn't too much of a spoiler, but I wanted to ask you about the decision to go with a werewolf, an actual wolf man versus the traditional werewolf. Modern werewolf movies mostly tend to go towards the more classic, like wolf shape or either a wolf monster, but there's very little of the man left. So I was kind of curious of how you decided to go that route.
Well, it's funny though. Listen to your words. You're saying the classic thing is this modern thing. In my opinion, classic is the werewolf, the wolf man. Sorry, and that is the name of that movie. But Henry Hall Ford in 1935, he apparently didn't want to put the makeup on. It's the same designer, Jack Pierce, and he, I think, wanted that Lon Chaney thing, but the actor said no, too good looking to get all that. The project ongoing, and then the werewolf hit, so they repeated that, obviously, in subsequent sequels and what have you. But then, I was a teenage werewolf. That's a flat face. The famous Mexican actor, what's his name? So sorry, Sanchez movie, but he made hundreds, dozens of werewolf movies. It's always flat face. Henry Oliver Reed, flat face. So it was really the excitement of crazy makeup guy and some directors, the whole thing about the Howling American Werewolf. It was the same makeup conceits, and one guy was about to make it, then stolen the other. I don't know. The story is kind of cool, but the point is, it was one breakthrough idea to have the snout. And then now we have Dog Soldiers, and we have whatever the Eclipse movies. I don't know quite what they do, but they just go in the wolf. See, this is not my jam. I like a wolf man, as you see from my movie. You can see the actor under there. And so what I like is the choice to make it more psychological, because you're sort of aware that it's almost like, I even put the monster on the poster. I didn't want to create this thing of like, ooh, we got to go to Fessenden's movie and then we'll see what he's going to do. I'm like, no, this is a werewolf movie. This is going to look like. And now let's sort of think about what else we're experiencing in this picture. So that's the idea. So psychological choice. And finally, and I said this before, but there's a comic book called Werewolf by Night, and that's my favorite werewolf of all. And that's a complete flat-faced wolf man, really buff, cool. It came from Marvel, so it's a superhero, meaning superhero adjacent. And it was a dude who turned into a werewolf and had all kinds of problems and battled enemies. I mean, it was, as I said, the superhero novel. But that's beautiful drawings by Mike too. And that was my dream role. Be hard to put on screen, but I came close with Alex.
Yeah, no, I like that choice too, because like you said, it's the man behind it too. And it's like you can almost when he just turns into a werewolf and he's running around like a creature on four legs and everything. Well, I mean, that's cool and it has its place, but I feel like you don't, the werewolf stories have always been the struggle, of the guilt that he feels, the constraints he's trying to prevent this from turning. And I feel like when you see it, like, and you can see the eyes and more of a man, you don't forget the man, you don't forget the person that it originally was.
Absolutely. And I think it works in my film, to the degree that it does work. When he visits his girlfriend, it feels like a home invasion, a bad breakup, as it was a monster movie. Now, of course, that might annoy some fans. Good for them for having their opinion, but that's the world that I'm creating. It's like, what would it really be like to be a werewolf? Well, maybe you wouldn't turn into the. The funny thing is, as much as we love American Werewolf in London, I don't actually love the final wolf. I love the transformation scene, the hands, the claw, the snout starting. But then when he's in the subway, which is one of the great movies of cinema, the great moments in cinema, when you really see him, I mean, yeah, he's scary, of course, but it's just kind of like a big shih tzu, it's like, I don't know what. So that's not my favorite jam. So good for that movie, but I'm going to do my own shit.
Yeah, and that's what I like in this movie too. You may, this movie has a lot more depth to it than just the werewolf story. It kind of goes along with what he's struggling with, but there's the the relationship factor, like you said, he's trying to, he's has a breakup. He's trying to still like, put his life back together. He's got the whole, you can, and you know what it is, you establish, not without trying to give too many spoilers away, but you establish that the guy's a good guy. He's trying to reform himself to begin, which is kind of funny when you're trying to reform yourself, but yet you're transforming into a werewolf at the top of it. But and it's just also, there's also that some of the themes of racial injustice going on. You just have so much in there, and yet none of it feels forced, which I think is incredible that you pulled off, because all of it's interesting. Like, you want to find out about everything. You don't want one little thread to drop off. You want to find out about everything, and I think you do a great job of getting all that together.
Well, I really appreciate it. And it just shows, this is the world when you're an artist, especially in the indie scene. Like, some people see the same movie and they're frustrated. They don't feel like the threads are followed through or whatever. But my real agenda is to say, look, these things are all connected. A lot of the things that are going wrong in the world they're connected. They're not, and in the 90s, we all started watching our own channels. We would all have magazines about just what we wanted, cable channels about fishing or sports or, monster channels, the whole thing. It used to be everything was together on the same TV. And so I feel like everybody sort of understood each other's world, but we become so fractured. So I'm telling a story that sort of invites you to realize that this stuff is connected, that the racial injustice thing is connected to the environmental thing. It's a point of view that everything is about, well, let's face it, sort of a capitalistic money driven perspective. And people get lost in that. And the movie is about all these relationships that are sort of fracturing, even the two dudes that are sort of pals and they're like, I'll stick with you forever, dude. Later on, they just kind of randomly abandon each other, and you're like, oh, that's what happens. And then the old men are bitching about the young people, and it's just like, oh my God, the whole society's falling apart. And there's a werewolf out there, and we should be fighting the werewolf, not so much fighting each other.
Yeah, no, and that's really one of the things I feel that it's going to stand out about this movie for the people that choose to see it that way, because that's why I enjoyed it so much, because there was so many things.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. If it is your cup of tea, I think it's somewhat refreshing, because obviously, the thing about horror, which I love through and through, and so many types of horror. For one thing, that's what's so cool. There's so many great genres within horror. But I'm not. It's not my favorite thing when it announces it's a horror movie, and the music is spooky. Now we can actually think of many great ones that do that. But it's my life approach of things sort of creeping in, because that's how life is. You're going about your day, and then you get the phone call, and you're I don't know what the story I'm going to put out there, but somebody's sick, or there's been an accident, or worse than that, you realize you're an alcoholic starts to realize that they can't cope, or they're being forgetful, or they're blacking out. If you will.
Yeah.
So the point is life is filled with all the scary things can creep in, and I find that an interesting approach. Of course, we love Halloween and other movies where it's like, let's get right to business, get the best fucking music to open this movie, and that's going to be fantastic. But they're just different ways to tell these stories. That's what I
Definitely.
So Larry, you had a great cast for this film. Can you talk about some of the actors that you worked with on set?
Yeah, well, of course, the main guy is Alex Hurt, and he really committed to this. When I met him, he was on my son's film called Foxhole, and Alex was playing a World War One soldier, and it was black and white, and he had the helmet and the whole thing. But we started, and he really immersed in that work. But then we were talking, and he revealed that he became an actor because he loved the old Universal movies. And my ears. He is, I don't know if it's clear to you guys, but he's the son of William Hurt. So there you have that.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay.
So that's the obvious other reason he became an actor. But I think he had a volatile relationship with the old man. And so we were just talking about things, and I just realized he was, so perfect for the Wolfman, which I was percolating on. And so sometime after that, I made the commitment, called him to really play the Wolfman. And he was just really excited because I think we had a good time. My son's film, and we're happy to work together again. And he really committed. He did the physical work. got the body in that place, and did the movement for the monster stuff. I would send him videos and say, I want you to go, yeah, all this. So it was a beautiful collaboration. And beyond that, of course, Barbara Crampton showed up. I really did insist. I begged her. I mean, we pal was the most willing and able, but it was still a bit of a drag. But I figured out when she would be out in the East Coast. So that was cool. She was going to some convention or something. I said, listen, just Uber yourself over to our neck of the woods. We'll be there. It was the first day of shooting, so that was fun. I mean, it's hard to list everybody. And what I do love is that they all, in my opinion, again, not everyone agrees, but to me, you get their entire character with just a few moments, and you really have a sense of their history. And even the kids in the beginning, they're sort of very specific the way they're flirting, and obviously the boy has been thinking about this sort of. And what is the word? Whatever exhibitionist, almost like he wants to fucking feel. That just seems something. All right, I love you. Okay. I just like, you already realize, oh, this is relationships all over the place. The guy has a fantasy and the woman's like, all right, because I love you and all this. And then she's bossing him around, slow down. But go on. And then, so you want to kind of get to love these people as quickly as possible. And then slash their throats off and you say, oh, and then the two dudes who are what I call the good Samaritans, you sort of figure out, oh, they must be a couple. That's kind of charming. They're driving around in the country. And one guy has his green suit on. That's Michael Buscemi. He's a wonderful actor. I've known for years. Jeremy Holmes in Jen Wexler's film Ranger. So these are pals I picked up over the years. James LeGros, but several pictures of ours. It's just salt of the earth. Has an amazing career all the way back to Drugstore Cowboy. So, and then we found Marshall Bell.
I was gonna say I liked when I saw him because I've always been a fan of his. He's so good.
And you're like, oh my god, that dude! Oh my god! He mind explodes with all of his, the Verhoeven movies and all that madness. So, and I guess he's in Stand By Me. How cool is that? So, Marshall was great. I wanted that sort of typical archetype, bad capitalist guy, and he was really a fun guy. So what can I say? Addison Tinman is just absolutely wonderful, and Joe Swanberg. They have a great scene together, which is just you're literally watching acting. It's just so fun. Or what I'm saying, it could be a scene study because they're just doing this thing, but you realize she's not over Charlie the werewolf from. She's concerned, and he's trying to be a modern man, but he's just impatient. I mean, I find it all very amusing.
Yeah, no, and that leads perfectly to the next question. But I was going to say, what was so good is they gave such good performances, and the dialogue was so good, and it seems so natural. Like, was everything that they were doing scripted, or did you kind of give them some idea and say, just go with it? Because that dinner sequence seems so realistic. Like, just was Joel Swanberg like his reactions? He's like, oh, you want to like it? It didn't seem like he was acting anymore. It seemed like they were really like you just kind of snuck into their house and watched them kind of like make dinner or something.
That's fantastic because that's my agenda. It's like I want to use this naturalism to tell a supernatural story. And it just seems refreshing. As I say, you can have the scary music playing and all of that, and that's a definite ride. We've got so many favorites that take that approach. But I like the idea of like you feel like you're in real life, and then something supernatural happens. That's sort of like really kind of making you feel fresh, to my eyes. So Joe, it's funny you ask because the movie is completely scripted, every scene, every moment. But Joe Swanberg is a special egg, and he shows up. You're like, I guess you looked at the script because you definitely know the shape of the scene, but like, you're just kind of going on, and so. All these nuances that were his own. And I just absolutely loved it, and I've acted in his movies, and he's a big proponent of improv, which I usually am resentful of improv because I'm like, well, now you're making me write the script, and I'm just showing up. But he puts you in a place where it's really, it's very magical how he directs his movies. He gives you a 17-page script and make a feature. So. Of course, when he did his thing, I was delighted. And Addison was totally game. She made that adjustment. And the other guys that created a little bit of their own world were the two, whatever you call them. Actually, their names are Bert and Ernie, which is a joke.
Oh, really? That's a
You don't really hear it. I'm just kind of vaguely there. But those two guys who are trying to record Miguel, and they're just like trying to fuck with everything. So they kind of built a little bit more of their story, which was good. Everyone else just came in and did the lines, and wonderful naturalistic performances of scripted stuff. So that was a pleasure.
But then you're like a master at dialogue too, though, because if you're saying that was the only scene really that they ad-libbed, because some of those lines were great, like that one scene where he's in the that cherry picker machine and he's grilling him. He's like, well, if he did this or if he did, I don't want to give it away the lines because it's too funny. I want people to, but and if he's like, well, would you do this? And then he's just like, hey, you're a funny guy. I mean, it's just so natural and so like.
Well,
It's very comforting in a way.
What did you say? It's what?
It's like comforting to see like dialogue that you're like is realistic,
That's it's nice you mentioned that. First of all, that's not an actor. That's my friend who's an artist. He builds stuff out of wood. That's why he has that truck.
Oh, that was actually his truck?
Absolutely. And
that's awesome.
He has this pink shirt he wears, and it was just funny because I already had the gag about the white pants, and he's teasing him, and then it's like a pink shirt. What do you think about my white pants? So I'm just enjoying that people tease each other all the time. It's a sign of affection. I like that. But it's cool that you point out that one exchange because Alex suggested that. It's exactly as scripted, but I didn't have the back and forth as much. So you're absolutely right. It makes it funnier because he keeps topping the absurdity. As you say, till the end when he's like, well, let me get it straight. If he did this, would it be okay?
Yeah.
And the other dude just says, you're kidding. So that was improved by, working with the actors. He said, why don't you write? I wrote it that way. So they did perform as written, but it was improved by his suggestion. So, that's the thing. You get in there. I added a few things. Also working with the priest. My friend is a fairly pious fellow. He's a great actor. He's done lots of crazy things. He's going to be in a new movie of ours called Catcher. John Sparadakis, he worked at Wendigo. I Sell the Dead. Great actor. But he advised me how he thought maybe some of that should play. Just what a priest might actually want. He says something like, well, I can help you if you give me your confession. I mean, it was interesting. Like, in other words, if you work within my stricture, I will serve you. I just thought, so that's the thing. When you have your script, that is the Bible. That's the blueprint. But then you get busy from there. It's just wonderful working with people who care and want to bring some authenticity to what's going on.
That's awesome.
Yeah, very nice. So the film has toured festival circuits, I know last year at least. So what are some of your favorite reactions you've received from audiences out on the festival circuit?
Without a doubt, my favorite thing was seeing it in Fantasia and having the audience really chuckle and giggle and laugh. Not at the movie. I'm not winking at the movie and saying our movie's goofy. No, they were laughing along with the characters and having a sense of camaraderie with the people and sort of what I hope is that they were recognizing, that old trope, when the guys things are what they seem on the porch going, the kids today. Morgan, who's of course an incredible artist of many dimensions. So he's always peculiar. He's the one that was his idea. He picked up the cat and he brings it into frame, and there's no cat there. He just petting an invisible thing, and it's like, only Kevin would think of that. It's so peculiar.
Yeah, he's hilarious.
He just is. I mean, he's in whatever Pineapple Express. Oh, he's has a weird career because he's in a couple of Scorsese movies. Then he's in some goofball things on TV. He's amazing, great guy.
Yeah, they so what are some of the I mean, you kind of touched on this, but is there anything we might have missed in terms of like takeaways you really hope the audience like comes away with after seeing this?
No, because there's no one message. I'm not saying, we could only, see Medicare, none of this, whatever. It's not. I'm saying life is filled with ironies because people say things like, his friend says, well, I'm not going to do well in this scenario. I don't want to give that away either. But then
Yeah.
he's exactly right. And it's not that I'm saying this is what happens. I'm just saying, that is what happens.
Yeah.
So I think where irony, people are trying to get along. People are more and more alienated. People are sparring each other. Nobody believes in the werewolf, so there's got to be another solution. So let's choose something to, it's just, I'm trying to create a world that is familiar and then put something that is fantastical in and see what happens. And, it's about a guy who's basically saying, I think I have to kill myself. So that's in itself a very heavy thing. And yet, we're in a werewolf movie and hopefully we're having sort of fun thinking about heavy things, but, knowing that there's this specter of the werewolf thing. And I think in the end, I'm saying my experience of life, I'm just a paranoid person. I always think the plane will crash. That's how I think. And the sad thing is when you're right, meaning, games I've always been obsessed with. Well, it's not getting any better. Nobody's fixing that. So I just feel like I want to create a world in which there really are monsters. And, that's my response to the world.
That's good.
So can you tell us anything that you're working on next? Anything that's not a secret, obviously.
Yeah.
Anything in the works?
When I was little, I would tell, well, whatever age I'm saying, when I wasn't an old man of 60, I would tell my friends I'm going to make a movie, whatever the movie was, and that would be the way that I felt. Then I would be ashamed if I didn't follow through. So I've now been saying in these nice interviews, if somebody asks, what I am going to do is a mashup of all my monsters in one movie. And that is the agenda. I don't know if I can finance it. I don't know. I've started the writing, thinking about it, but I think that would be cool. I'll talk about a movie that would be absurd, and yet could I wrangle it to something worthwhile? That would be
Well, Tim and I would sign up to watch
That would be
in a
amazing,
second.
yes.
Yeah, we'd be all in.
Well,
So,
because there's a little Easter egg there when the werewolf is walking down the road and he passes the dude from Depraved.
yeah, I did. I see. Okay, see, I didn't get to see Depraved, but I did see that scene. I was like, I know I'm missing something a little bit here. So
Well, a natural way to think that is like, oh, is that the original werewolf?
yeah. See, that's what I thought. Yeah.
The thing is, there's no right answer, but
Yeah.
and you're right. I've become aware that that's such an inside joke. Talk about arrogant. It's as if everyone knows my entire oeuvre. I'm the first to admit that's absurd. This is not the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
I think what's fun is that one day maybe it'll all pay off and you could see all the movies again and then see whatever I come up with and you go, oh, this is cool. This stuff all connects. So we'll see.
I loved it. In fact, I'm literally going to go back now that I see this is going to be a heavy load because you have so many things, but I'm going to go through your entire IMDb thing here and because I'm gonna if this one was just blew me away so much, I'm super excited now to go through all your other stuff. I mean, I saw some other stuff you've done in the past, but now I want to see everything.
I want to curate for a moment. Well, you see, if you see Habit and Depraved, they are this whole, these conversations are always about the universal monsters. Those are the ones that are sort of about, those are my revisionist horror movies or monster movies. But, I've also made 3 movies about the Wendigo, which is a whole other thing. And so, that maybe is my favorite movie in terms of atmosphere, but it's not part of this world. Blah, blah, blah. I'm just riffing. It is all of it. I hope to do a couple of them is what I'm saying. Maybe don't.
We love all monster stuff, so we're into Wendigo, we're into all the cryptids, everything. So it's you can't go wrong with us on those.
Yeah.
Finally, I guess though, just want to wrap up. Where can everyone check out this movie? Because I know people are gonna. I already see the buzz on the internet. People are posting about how they can't wait to see it. So where can they see it?
In fact, it does come out. I mean, it's funny. I'm doing my little theatrical tour, and I realize I'm just such an old man. That's my idea of the movie coming out. But let's say April 12th, it becomes available on the internet, and I play for it for a while, and then it will maybe show up somewhere else. I don't know how it works, but yeah, at first it'll be a rental you'll pay for it, and that's how you can see it. So that's just Friday. That's any day.
Nice. Yeah, well, we'll make sure we post it. Like what we're links to it once it comes out, and we'll make sure we everyone can check it out because it's so good. I think people are gonna love. I know, like the group that we talk to a lot through on Twitter and whatever, they will absolutely love this movie. I already know like some people, which I can't wait to tell. Like because I waited to respected the little embargo date there. So, but now I'm gonna post about a little bit that now that the reviews can come out, I'm gonna talk about tell people how they gotta go see this for sure. So.
Well, I gotta say, I really appreciate it. You can't make these weird offbeat films without fans like you guys. Cinema lovers and people who want surprises in their, in their genre or in whatever. I don't know what else you enjoy, but the point is it means a lot, and I really appreciate the support because it's easy to say this movie is, not your cup of tea, and then that's fine. But let's face it, I'm just trying to get my little tiny corner of showbiz attention, so I appreciate it. Cool.
Well, not to sound cliche, but you keep making them. I can guarantee you, Tim and I will keep seeing them.
Yes.
So.
Tickets.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on, Larry. And again, we've always enjoyed your work, and looking forward to seeing what you do in the future. You're always welcome to come back on and promote anything you got in the pipeline. So
Dynamite, I love it. Let's stay in touch.
all right,
Definitely.
we'll do.
Thanks.
All
Take
right.
care.